contrary to popular belief in the US, I think there is incredible amounts of innovation happening in China. I think the common wisdom is that because in the US the university systems have been around longer in terms of the fundamental science research that's been done there, and also there's venture capital that's in Silicon Valley and New York and Boston, and sort of this entrepreneurial mindset that's been around for a long time, that the US is the center of the innovation world and China is playing catch up or copycat. I actually don't think that that's the case. I think that while it's true that the US probably has more depth and breadth in terms of fundamental research and a lot of the things that we invest in, and China is developing that capability, Chinese companies are incredibly innovative when it comes to go-to-market strategy, getting access to this new consumer base that is coming in from the countryside, the emergence of this middle class that is thirsting for new products. The Chinese are incredibly creative and innovative on how to get to this new class of consumer in a way that American companies don't need to be as innovative. Lanzatech is addressing one of China's biggest problems, which is air pollution. They've developed a platform technology that converts waste gas, so the toxic gas that comes out of the smokestacks at steel mills, other industrial factories, the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide gas that currently is causing a lot of problems with pollution in the big cities in China. So Lanzatech has developed this platform that converts that gas into valuable fuels and chemicals. So they can take the carbon monoxide at a steel mill and on site biochemically convert it into ethanol, acetic acid, butadiene, and a broad range of products that can be sold on the open market. So it's valuable then for two reasons. One is that it is addressing the pollution problem directly with these industrial factories, and it's also creating renewable products that all can be sold on the open market. So the company has developed a technique that is also very capital efficient compared to a lot of the other ways that you address carbon. So right now you can build $1 billion pipeline and ship it to another place to use the carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, or you can drill underground and you hope that geologically it works. Here, for less than $50 million, you can get a factory that will sit next to your steel mill or your industrial factory that can address that gas immediately on site. Well, we were actually the original seed investors in the company. We led the Series A about 7 or 8 years ago. It's a technology based out of New Zealand. And so a lot of the early thinking was, how do you take a scientist and a great technology that's based in New Zealand and think through how to build a company around it and think through the different products that you can focus on and the global markets where you can focus. When we started to think about China as a great market, we actually helped facilitate some of the early introductions to partners that led us to Bao Steel, Baogang, which is our first joint venture partner. So outside of emission reduction, there's a huge opportunity in transforming transportation for China. Right now, you have the fastest growing middle class. People have enough money to afford cars, and they want to drive. They want to have the freedom and flexibility to do that. And so the next wave of transportation solutions needs to address emissions coming from vehicles as well as fuel efficiency. There's obviously a big trend around electric vehicles, but the big problem with electric vehicles is that they're still too expensive, and there isn't electric charging infrastructure anywhere, whereas there's hundreds of millions of fueling infrastructure. So from our perspective, addressing the transportation problem is a very big issue in China and other parts of Asia and India certainly, and we have several technologies that do that, including eco-motors, which is this technology that is what we think is the next generation of combustion engine technology. It's twice the power density of a normal engine, and if you put two of these together in the same volume, the same space, you can get to 30 to 50% better fuel efficiency, which is transformative in this market. We think LED lighting is definitely a big area. We think building materials is also another big area in Asia. There are more buildings going up in different parts of China today than in almost anywhere in the world. On the food side, any technology that allows you to be more efficient with the use of land, so you don't need as many animals and you can be more environmental, I think is important. And any technologies that address food safety, for the Chinese is very important. So we have two companies that Li Jiacheng just invested in. One is to make meat without cows, 人造牛肉, and then making eggs without chickens, 人造鸡蛋. And in both of those cases, the idea is using plant proteins and the latest advances in food science and genomics to be able to create molecular substitutes that are actually a replacement for meat or a replacement for different functional uses of an egg. And so in China, it's potentially very valuable because we don't have enough cows to feed this growing middle class, and you fast forward 10, 20 years, there's not enough land to put all these cows, right? So, so these are important areas. And then on the last area around agriculture, I think many technologies that can improve crop productivity, that all, again, comes down to, can you use the land that you have that's limited in China to make enough food, fruit, vegetables, so that you can feed this growing population that's going to demand it. So we now have 12 companies that have some activity in China, either a joint venture partnership, licensing deal, equity investment, that have successfully made the journey across the Pacific. Now, whether ultimately the partnerships are successful remains to be seen, but they've been able to take an important initial step. The challenge for me and my colleagues is that every deal is different. Our partners, in many cases, have never worked with an American company. And we're building a deal structure from scratch. Many of them want to come in and buy the company or get 51% of the equity of a company. Well, that's a no-go. So we have to find a way to structure something where it's culturally compatible with the way they think about ownership and involvement in a company, but also suitable for the type of investment needs that we have. And for a lot of these sustainability companies, we need them to put money in to invest the capital, we put in the technology, so the partnership works. But it is very challenging because of the cultural and language barrier. Most of my senior management teams have no one on the team that speaks Chinese, so I end up being the de facto chairman who represents the company speaking Chinese to negotiate a deal. And then in other cases, you have just fundamental differences around, what the right type of deal structure is for often a very unsophisticated investment partner on one side, and another partner, technology partner, that's afraid of doing business in China. So one of the companies that I mentioned earlier, Eco Motors, the engine company, we actually did this in two steps. We had first a non-exclusive licensing partnership with a publicly traded company called Zhongding, that is a automotive engineering and components company. We offered them an engine product, right? So they agreed to invest $200 million US to build our first plant in Anhui, Xuancheng, this like city in the middle of nowhere, but building a plant where we don't have to put in any capital, we put in our technology non-exclusively, and we get access to guaranteed capacity. So it's clean tech done right. It's a good type of deal for a company like ours that has limited resources but great technology. Stage two was a joint venture with Zhongguo Yiqi and its engine subsidiary. So this is the second largest automaker in China. Once they saw Zhongding working with us, they wanted a piece of the action, and they wanted to work with us to commercialize not a diesel engine, but a compressed natural gas version of the engine and methanol version of the engine. And so then we entered into a 51-49 joint venture with them, where again, they have responsibility to contribute capital into any plant. We contribute IP non-exclusively, and off we are in commercializing the technology with them. 怎麼你幹嘛成時佔了，發現又亂了，彷彿劇烈運動員散了，一看表心裏止不妙。這晚你去過哪裏吧？願那個他靜靜談着舊調。